say that again.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So again, the most critical thing whenever you become a partner with Voterizer is to use your subdomain, which you'll get from us in everything that you do. When you send a link to somebody, when you put it, when you log in to Voterizer, it should all be under your subdomain, and that will make sure that all data goes to you. Everything you do is tagged with your stuff. It's very important. So just always make sure to use that. And I'll show you a little bit more how we've tried to make that as easy as possible going forward. So those are the basics. Again, it doesn't register voters. It collects information and directs you to the appropriate resources to do that, and use your subdomain if you become a Voterizer partner. You sign up to be a partner at voterizer.org/partner. Once you've done that, or actually, even if you didn't, you can actually embed it in your site. So here's some code on that same page that shows you how you can embed Voterizer in your site. And then it just, works within a window, essentially within your site. There's also a Spanish version of Voterizer. You go to it by hitting, switch to Spanish. There are currently a limited number of states under Spanish, but we are adding more all the time. So that's sort of your basics of Voterizer. Now let me get into sort of what happens when you log in. So once you log into Voterizer, you end up in a page that looks like this now. So this is the new Voterizer, my Voterizer 2.0. Originally, it was a one-pager with a few functions. Now we're trying to add some new functions. There's a lot here. So the good news is there's a user guide. If you click on the user guide, it will pop it open to another page, another tab, so you don't have to go back. You can just do it. And there's a lot of information in here about how each section of Voterizer works. So back to here. So the first tab is profile, and that's that same basic information you filled out on the partner page. You would hit update. You would fill out whatever you want to change if you needed to, and then you can hit update, and it'll save that information. Customizations. This is where it gets a lot more fun with Voterizer. That's why when you Voterizer that had the John Lewis on his page was because I made that change. So we have English and Spanish, and you can update the front page in a variety of ways. And so there's a banner at the top. That's this orange box here, and you can put anything you want in there, including HTML. And there's some sample HTML in the fields when you start. So you'll come with, when you first sign up, you'll get them as blank, and it'll be using all the basic information, all the what we call the default information. You go in, you hit this little customize Voterizer button. So in other words, it looks like this when you start. You hit customize Voterizer, and here's one little pro tip. If you click on that, all the fields blank out. So anything you've done will be lost, but it also is a way of resetting. So I'm going to just real quick go back and then hit the update button again so I don't lose what I've done. There are several sections on the front page. So again, this is the front page of Voterizer. It looks like this. The banners at the top again, above the form. So there's a form. The form asks for, let's go back to English real quick. The form asks if you're going to register to vote or register to vote from home, because those are different websites typically, or different pages on different websites at the Secretary of State. And we need to know that. You pick your state from the list. On the My Voterizer, we have a little section above the form. The form is obviously not changeable. They have a little section below the form. We have the voter, a little second section below the form. It's just, you can do anything you want with it. We just call them various things, but you can use HTML, as you can see in the sample content. You can drop in an image. So this is sort of like, this is an older, I think, default image, and now we have new ones, but bottom line is there's a default image. You can add your own image in. You have to be careful about the dimensions, both this and your logo, by the way, or else it will get cut off. It will look strange. So make sure you live with these dimensions. This is 525 by 700. The logo is a square. If it's anything but a square, it will cut off the sides of the rectangle. We've created some font tags. So that's what these are, in case you're not familiar with HTML, and they just basically tell when it renders the page to make it look a certain way. So we have these H ones. H1 through 6. They're basically just various sizes and boldness. And so you can mix and match those to do it. You can also add your own HTML in there, but this is for simplicity's sake. Now, the second page, so the way Voterizer works is that the first page is that main page. It just collects that one piece of information about how you want to vote, and then your state, and then it jumps to page 2. Page 2 has all this, the sort of standard form for grabbing information: first name, last name, address, phone number, email. And we do ask for party affiliation. If you're a college student, that's just for a little pop-up. And you can walk through this yourself, and I'll show you how to do that safely in a little bit. But the bottom line is you'll get a little pop-up that tells you a little bit about being a student in that state. In some states, for example, if you're a resident, you can vote there. You have to file for residency and vote in that state. And that tells you some information along those lines. Gives you a little info. This is actually a little old. We've moved this to the top now. Gives you a little info about this. Like, for example, if you've chosen to vote by mail but haven't registered to vote in most states, you actually have to register to vote first. And this little gray box will tell you it's now at the top of the form. The point of all this is that there is one field or one area you can do a little customization, and that's your party affiliation header. So the little text that tells it what this drop down is, you can put whatever you want here. So you can make it as political or apolitical or nonpartisan or nonpartisan as you want. The drop down is the same, doesn't matter. It just says Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, I think, and others, Green, maybe something like that. And then so this is one area of customization on page 2. So it's the only thing that you can have an impact on the second page of Voterizer. If you want to make those changes, you would hit update and it would take you back. And then there's the Spanish side of it too. So you can choose to customize one or the other. You don't have to customize both. You can use, for example, the default for Spanish and the customize English, or vice versa, or customize none of them. It doesn't matter. The only thing that will automatically customize for you is that little logo at the bottom of page 1. So whatever you put in your logo in your profile will pop up there, regardless of whether you choose to customize the page or not. So by the way, so now the menu is all new. We didn't have a menu before. We just had sort of everything on one page. So this is also from the old version of Voterizer. My Voterizer. And what this is in the third page of Voterizer, and in the second page of the new field version, which we'll show you in a minute, there are extensive notes that we update and keep managed for every single state. It talks about all the changes, deadlines, a variety of things. You can see it for yourself if you were to choose to go through it. And what this allows you to do is add your personal notes for your organization. So this is, again, where that comes into play, where your organization code or your subdomain comes into play, is that if I, for example, were to have someone go through it from New Jersey, Morris County, New Jersey, in this particular instance, because New Jersey has some stuff by county, then that note would appear. Now, it wouldn't appear for anybody else from any other organization, and it wouldn't appear for any other state. So it's very customized for, in this case, state and county. As you can see, this one, for example, is just the state, and both things appear. So you have sort of 3 sets of notes. One is our standard notes that are managed by Voterizer and Field Team 6, and it is pretty extensive, but obviously it's not personalized for your organization. You can do it at the state level, and you can do it at the county level for 5 different current states. That's it. And again, that's because there are differences by state. You might ask if we could do it by congressional district. That's on our roadmap, but not ready just yet. That's a complicated process because what congressional districts, based on address, are complicated. So it's by county for 5 states, by state for all the other ones. And if it's for county, you can also do a statewide one. So if you don't have a note for example, I have a note for Morris, but if we don't have a note for Bergen County, then the New Jersey, the New Jersey one will appear. This one will appear regardless of what county is chosen by the user. And so you can just put it's very simple. I'll show you the form. The reason why there's a drop down here is because there are some people who actually manage multiple organizations. You would, in that case, the profile, for example, would have 2 rows in it. The customizations might have 4 if there were 2, and you can pick from your drop down. This is just one of them. Again, you pick your language. So you actually have to do it by language. Again, your state and your county, if that's relevant. And then you would hit update, and I can show you sort of the add new function is very similar, right? If you pick a state that has counties, for example, Alabama, then the county field appears. Alaska, the county field does. So this is all sort of for anybody who's been using Voterizer. This is all old news. I've just reformatted a little bit and a little bit more convenient. Now we get into some new stuff. So the next item on our menu are entries. And this is something we actually did have recently, but it's been expanded. This will show you all the entries that have been made for your organization. And this is a lot of test data, as you can see. And it allows you to export it to a CSV file. So comma separated value, that's a file that can be opened by Excel or any word processor, any word processor, but any spreadsheet. And you can do a quick export. It doesn't delete that data, so it just will continue to collect it unless we purge it. So you might have to sort of keep an eye on that. There are 3 versions of Voterizer right now, essentially, and we're going to get to those. I kind of alluded to the field version. There's also a version that we've made to collect information from paper ballots, and you can get the data is separated. They're in separate tables, so you would get the data from each one of them. You could export any of them to CSV and say, do what you will with the data. So that's a big change. So now you don't have to request data from us. You can get it yourself. So let's talk about the paper one. I'll get to field shortly, but since it's not a sort of separate thing here. Paper forms is a multi-step process. And this is the process we've developed for it, and always open to feedback. So let us know if there's anything we can do differently. By the way, this will work on a phone. And so the first step is pretty simple. You just want to upload the file. So, a lot of times collecting the ballots in the field itself is a separate process from sort of collating them and using them. So you would just either you can scan them if you want to. Okay, Joanne. Yes, Joanne, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
A question. There are rules about obtaining data for, let's say, a central committee versus a Democratic club. And so now that you can get your own data, do we just have to know we're allowed to do it or not allowed to do it? Does that make sense?
Good question.
Well, the data is always there, so I guess I don't know. I guess so. I mean, we're not policing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wasn't sure. Okay.
Sure. So you can scan them and click here or drop a file here to upload. Or if you're on a phone, you can actually use the camera and just take a picture of each different form and then upload it. Now I've added this here, and I'm open to feedback on this. Is that there's a lot of, again, sort of data protection. You might want to ask the user whether the person you've captured a paper form from, if it's okay to communicate with them. We could put that here, or we could put that on the next page, and I'll show you what that is in a second. But the bottom line is that for each of those registration cards or forms, you would take a picture, hit the upload button, it would save it. And then what you would be able to do is go to the transfer info part of this thing. No entries. That's odd. Let's see something. Uh-oh. Of course, there's going to be a glitch whenever you. Oh, that's what I did. Okay, let me see. Let's try it then. Let's see. I've got one as a test one. Pull it up. So let's drop. Oops, what happened here? All right, let's drop one in. Upload, transfer info, come on, baby. And there it is. So there's what happened. So it just popped up in my little table to manage them. If you hit update, it'll show you the form in a nice big version here. Basically the same information is collected over here. You would just type it, because it's not going to scan it. It's not going to do character recognition, but it will, give you the ability to sort of type it in from one to the other. I assume a separate volunteer would do that. Now, here's a little thing, sort of again in data protection. One of the challenges here and one of the concerns is that we shouldn't be keeping these forms. These forms have sensitive information. They sometimes have last score of social, maybe even all of social in some cases, and we should not be keeping that. So you can actually delete that. If you click here before you save, it will delete the form and it'll gone forever. And then here's that same field again. And we can just keep this field here, by the way. So I'm happy to get feedback on that. But the bottom line is once you capture whatever information you want, nothing is required here. So you can just, you can get a name, you can get an email, whatever you want to capture from this form, whatever you feel comfortable with in your organization. The only thing that's required is state. And so in order to save it, and then you can hit save and move on. By the way, and if you hit completed, it will vanish from that sort of list of to-dos, that transfer info table, and appear. So, I'll give you this. I see Ellie, 1 second. This is an example. So where is this? This is Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to do this. I've deleted it. I'm going to hit completed, hit update. And now if I go to my table, no entries. If I go to my paper entries, I don't know why this thing is giving me grief today. It should have appeared, but it didn't. Well, always a bug when you're doing demos. I'm sorry, Ellie, go ahead.
Well, the question I have, you're able to get the voter registration. They've done a quote paper voter registration with this program. We get we're hoping we're going to get a bounty again in the state of California. Is there a way to transfer that information? Because what we've done in the past is send copies of the hard copies up to Sacramento. They send us the bounty checks. The Democratic headquarters of the desert, we distribute them and destroy them. But I'm just curious, with this program on being the way it's set up, will there be a way that that voter registration that was filled out by hand be transferred up to Sacramento if we get the bounty program again? You see what I'm saying?
So you just you could digitally upload them, the forms?
No, what we've always done these were hard copies that were filled out at our voter registration sites. We would make copies and we would send them to Sacramento in a bundle to get the bounty. And then we would destroy, we would mail in the hard copy, and then we would take the copies of them. The hard thing would be sent. I'm just wondering, how can we do that if they're registering on this program, or can we?
I think I know.
So we could,
Ellie,
we could set it up so that obviously I logged out somehow here.
Okay, well, you know what? Joanne's done this. Maybe, did you do this, Joanne?
I was just gonna say, Ellie, that take a picture of them still and then copy those.
But on the other hand, Ellie, if you're getting the data, then that when the last thing before he was signed out, we saw the list of everybody that had signed in. So if somebody is actually going to put these into a file, and then you're going to have all of that information, you can then download it into an Excel file and just send the Excel file, because they're all registered.
Yeah, that could, but we have to find out if they'll accept that, because they haven't. This is new.
Right.
Now, I know Joanne's done something similar, but you're right, Becky. We're going to find out.
Yes, so you could download the images from here into you can pull the images out. I'll make sure that that's it. I mean, not to CSV, but there should be a way to pull out the images, and then you can send out digital copies if you wanted to. Obviously, the paper copies you'll have, so you'll be able, you could do that differently as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll work it out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure why the paper one isn't working. I'll fix that.
No, but we'll work it out.
Sure.
This is a new world.
See, and Ellie, what this is that instead of taking a copy of the forms,
right,
then scanning it and then manually putting in the name, address, whatever else, and that will then give you the database of everybody and whatever.
Right. We
Yeah,
have to
so-
find out what the party is going to do, though, and I'll find that out before we get too much into this program. But we'll talk further, Joanne, about it, because you've done this program. You've been with Field Team 6 before. We haven't. So we'll work this out. Thank you. I've taken enough time.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the next item is tools. And the only tool currently available is a way of generating links and QR codes. So there are a variety of different versions of this, right? There's your paper version, your paper capture version, your field version, your regular version. And then we have a thing called campaign codes. And there's a way of doing testing. So this tool will let you generate the link for any of these various versions of the site. So the most important one is, whenever you start here, you'll start with the default options of regular site and none. So meaning no added information in the URL. You hit the get link, it'll pop up over here with and again, it'll always use whoever's logged in, it'll always use that subdomain. And then this QR code, if you scan it with your phone, would take you to voterizer.org or fia.voterizer.org. Now, if you want the field version, again, which I will demo, it'll see that it just adds field to it. So here's a good one for people who want to do testing. If you want to go through and test this in a variety of different ways, you can make a test link. You can pick either of these and then make a test link. And what it does is it causes a campaign code called test. And I'll get to that in a second. See something in the chat. Let me just see. Where's my chat? So anyway, sure why my chat's not popping up on my screen, but it's not. Okay.
I just want to say that is so cool. That's so cool. Yeah,
Hey, Jason.
awesome. I love
So,
it.
and then the more interesting aspect of this is, a lot of times when you are doing a Twitter campaign or even a texting, you might want to sort of measure the results and see how many people go through Voterizer that you sent there using, using that campaign. And so what you can do is you can create a campaign code, and it doesn't matter what it is. You can type anything you want in here, hit the get link, and it'll set that up here. And so again, your QR code and your link will save this information. And if you noticed in the entries, the campaign is here, and that code will pop up here. Here's an example where I was testing and it made a little phony campaign code. So that's useful for, again, when you want to measure. So if you use it and then collect the data, you can tell, okay, well, from that Twitter campaign, we received so many results. So that's the point of this. And again, getting that link can, make it helpful. So that's the point of the tools function. It's actually very similar to something I'm going to show you in a minute, which is the volunteer page. Now, we now have a way of registering as a volunteer. Joanne raised her hand. Go ahead, Joanne.
Real quick, so if we were going to make custom postcards to send out to people with a QR code on them for, let's say, the Central Committee, should we do the field version or a link to our Central Committee Voterizer, or should we do regular? Or does it matter?
It's up to you. And I should probably talk about the field site now, because that'll make things a little bit more clear. So we know that so there's two different ways coming up that people will be using, getting people to register to vote, right? Or about multiple, but two of them are, one is sending someone like this to Voterizer, who will then walk through it themselves and then go to a website like, your Secretary of State site and sign up. The other one is when you're literally in the field and you're talking to the person in front of you. Well, the literal opposite is going to happen, because you're going to be on the phone. And if you want to do this, not paper, get people to register at that moment, then you're, as a volunteer, going to be doing the actions, right? You're not going to turn your phone over to a stranger or to, especially given we're still in a pandemic, you're not going to hand over your phone. And so you're going to ask them for their information and walk through it for them on your phone. Well, in order to do that, we made a new version of, so you can see how quickly that I can get to the new version by just creating that link and clicking on it. Everybody's seeing my screen still? Yes? You're still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing magical about the first page really of the field version. You can see it says field here, so that's how you know. And we've taken out that question about whether you want to register to vote or register to vote from home. And the reason is because when you select it and hit get started, there's only one page now for the field version. And there are two buttons here. You can click either one of them and to go to the appropriate place. So it doesn't matter what the user wants to do at that moment. We do have the, again, information here. Step 1, register, you can register to vote by mail. So again, that information, we still have the student information is here. So you still can see that as a volunteer. And you think about it, not from the perspective of a voter, but from the volunteer. So the volunteer is looking at this. If they click, for example, register to vote, it will go and it's on their phone to a new tab so it doesn't lose the old and goes to the registration site. Same for this. There are a couple of forms if you want. They're completely optional. This one is kind of the version of collecting the user data. All we have is email, first name and last name, and then a question about would you like to volunteer? Actually, I want to make that customizable. But the bottom line is that there'll be a question, do you want to volunteer? So you can collect their information. Also, how did it go? This is really more directed toward the volunteer, even though it says I. We're trying to find out and capture information about, okay, how many did we actually register? We know we succeeded, not just sent them to a site, not just filled out a paper form, but it was a success. And that you can fill out here. When you hit submit, for example, on something like this, you get some information, you can refresh the screen and then start again. These are those notes I was talking about earlier from when you can customize. If again, you've used your subdomain, your special notes will pop up here as well. The finding my polling place is another quick, if they have a question about where their polling place is, also voter ID requirements, those buttons will take you to the appropriate place, get information about when the next election is. And if you hit the start again button, it basically just refreshes the page. There are kind of two ways this works a little bit. For the ones with counties, since it is theoretically possible that even if you're in one county, you'd be registering someone from another. If you hit the start again button, for example, I can go back. Let's show it to you. So we went to Alabama and we picked a county. We went here and then we hit start again. It would go back to the main page for the sake of, because it could be a different county. Whereas for for someone in Alaska, we just stay on the same page because that will never change. So that's the field version. And so now it's really up to you what version you want to use because they have different purposes. The purpose of the regular version is to have the voter register themselves, and the purpose of the field version is to have the volunteer register the voter. So that's why we have two different versions now, as people are getting out in the field and using them. So that is that. You see, all this stayed the same. Everything opens up in new pages, so you don't have to lose where you were if you happen to be in my Voterizer and doing this. This is a fun page. So we've set it up now that as a volunteer can actually register themselves. And the way that works is if you go to the main page, any of them, I'm sorry, this bar is hiding it. Give me a second. There's a little login here button. If you click that button, well, I'm already logged in. So it went to the volunteer portal as a volunteer. And this is what a volunteer would see. And again, they can also generate their own links. And if they've been given a campaign code, it defaults. So again, as you can see here, this is the current domain. It's again the FIA domain. This would take you to the normal one, FIA.voterizer.org. This one would take you to the field, and this one would take you to that paper upload, so they can upload forms in the field as well. You can have them add a campaign code. Again, all for convenience, but your defaults, your basics, I mean, as soon as you go to this page, will all take you to the volunteer where they logged in, and they can register. So if I log out, you can register this, and you can sign up. So again, register being a sensitive word. We changed all the terminology to sign up. So if you go to the login from that earlier form, let me go back for a second let's just go back to the main form. You'll see the login here button. You can go here, you can sign up. Anybody who signs up here will sign up as a volunteer and would go to that. And actually the first thing they go to is the field version. And when they log in, let me see, can I log in? Oh, sorry, I'm already registered. Let's see if I can log in as me. Hang on a second, I'm going to show you on a different screen. So I'm going to put something in there. So let me pop this open. Go log in here. Share my screen again. If I log in like this, we go right to the field version, but that little button at the bottom now, hiding under the Zoom bar, now it says volunteer portal. And if you go to the volunteer portal, that's where how you get to here. So this is a handy little thing for signing up volunteers, and then for generating the the links that they would use for the various versions of Voterizer. So I think that's almost done. Let me go back to my Voterizer real quick. And then put the Zoom back on. So again, we just did the volunteer page, just a little mini version of the same thing. The user guide you've seen, and that most of this is documented. There's a few things that need to be updated, but bottom line is mostly documented, and it will continue to be documented. And lastly is really the updates. And we try to keep now, after some great feedback, keep some information on this page about what's been changed recently. I'll try to make sure the date is here for the last update, and try to keep these kind of things up to date as well. So that's, I think, everything to cover. Yeah, according to my notes. Any questions? I did see something in the chat. It doesn't pop up when I'm in share mode. Sorry, hang on a second. I'm going to grab this out of the chat. I see from Karina. I'll reach out to you later. So, all right. So I think that's everything for my Voterizer, the new field version, the volunteer portal, and a lot about entries and how you can download them, and the way you can manage paper ballots and paper voter registration cards as well. Any more questions? Yeah.
When does this program start, or is it already in play, or what do we, I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, so it's up and running. It's
Okay.
live. If you log in as a partner, then you will go to My Voterizer, and everything, all those tools and features will be available to you right now.
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I'm thinking we haven't,
Great.
I kind of run I'm political director for the Democratic headquarters of the Desert. Becky does our voter registration. Janet Packer does our voter registration. I'm thinking, should we think about burn phones in order to get people to sign up so that we can just send folks out and do voter registration? Or do you see this program being more organized in a cohesive? Obviously, there's going to be a cohesive manner here, but I'm just wondering, the program is allowing if people go out on the streets, they could do a lot.
Well, I'm sorry, I guess I missed, I'm sorry, what was the question exactly? Do you
I'm
think that?
asking, would you advise a place like the Democratic headquarters of the desert to purchase phones so that our volunteers who are going to be doing things like Village Fest, which is a street thing, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to wonder about coordinating how we do this.
Sure. So we've had long discussions, Jason will tell you, about this. And I think that we don't have a good answer right now. I think that you need to get out there and try it. So, I mean, my suggestion is that, I think it can go any way, right? You may find that because of the speed of paper and the way people are used to it, that filling out the paper forms and then using that and then using the tools to upload them and capture the information if that's what you want is maybe the fastest way. Or maybe if you, like you said, have some phones that a volunteer can use, or maybe that you can hand and then sanitize so that the voter themselves actually does the work. So
Right.
I think there's a variety of different ways, and until we battle test it, we don't really know. And John, I see you raising your hand. 1 second. The other thing I want to say is that we want feedback. I really, really, really want feedback. When you go out and try this stuff out and you find something you like, a field in a different place, or I don't know, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever field you might find it, once you actually using this, you're going to find things that you like and don't like. And we want the feedback. We want to know so we can make fixes and streamline and make it as smooth to use as possible. Because as Jason always says, the key is getting them registered, right? That's the key. The rest of it is just, gravy that we can use one way or another. But the key is getting them registered. So whatever makes that the easiest is what we're going to want to do and make it easy for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Joanne, go ahead.
I was just going to talk to Ellie and Becky. Personally, I think if I were the person who wanted to register to vote, I would be leery about putting my information in someone else's phone.
Okay.
So to me, if you're going to use the actual portal for the person, it's almost better to have a tablet that they can see what's happening,
Okay.
rather than someone's little tiny phone. Personally, we're going to try it out at the fair this next weekend at the San Bernardino Fair, and I'm going to probably end up doing paper forms just because it's so fast. And then I'll upload it to Voterizer, which is fantastic.
And just by the way, keep in mind that if you use a phone or a tablet or anything else, you need connectivity. It needs to be online.
Exactly, that too, yeah.
Right.
So that's a key part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
If you're in a field where there's no connectivity, then it's not going to vote. The online version of Voterizer, either one, field or regular, won't work.
Okay, well, Joanne, Janet, and Becky and I'm sure at some point would like to get together with you because you've worked with Field Team 6 before. We haven't. And so it would be good to kind of pick your brain.
Can I just butt in for a second? It's great to hear like your thought process about this, Joanne. Like it really, this is a big experiment. And like, as we're starting up new voter drives, I just did my first in-person one since COVID in Orange County last week. And all our volunteers were like, except one, we're like, you would just use paper, which is fine. Whatever is the easiest way, whatever gets people registered, it works, the field version, I love. Adam, did you talk a little bit about how the regular voterizer.org is going to be kind of morphing a little?
Did not talk about that. Okay.
Maybe that I don't want to confuse the issue, but
confuse us, please.
Confuse it.
Tell us about
Okay.
that.
What we're thinking of doing is creating just changing the standard voterizer.org so it's a lot more like the field version, so that there is not that step that they have to, where the voter has to put in their information before being taken to the Secretary of State. So instead, they'll just choose their state, hit one of those two buttons, as in the field version, register to vote or register to vote by mail, and instantly go to the Secretary of State site. So it's just super fast, streamlined, frictionless process. It's, the whole problem in general with online voter registration is the leaky funnel. Every little step is another leak, and people get distracted and just drop out of the process. This eliminates the leaks by eliminating the funnel. It just takes you straight there. Yeah.
That kind of partly answers the question I've had. I mean, I think Voterizer is cool and it's got a lot of features and it's neat, but I need to ask the question, if all it's doing is here in California, for instance, referring people to the Secretary of State's voter registration website, why don't we just send them there in the first place?
Right. That's a good question. Adam, do you mind if I answer that?
No, of course not.
So what they get when they go through our site is we get to see that there's a chance they are registering, because they, a certain percentage who go through will get registered, but also it's just a 2-page process. This takes you to the exact page. And afterwards, if you would like a handy election reminder, then you can put in your name and email and more information if you like, not necessary though. And that's a huge service, and that allows us to really help get out the vote. And
that's the value. That's the value added.
Right.
Jason, it's confusing when somebody goes to the Secretary of State site, especially if they're going to go in some different state or different county. Like, what page do they need to go to? It's hard to navigate. It's hard to find. All these things are built into the system so that you have somebody saying, okay, right here is where you want to go. And it's not so easy to find. It might be easy in California, but it's not easy in other states.
Right. So that's a great point. Also, we have little, alerts under those 2 buttons that push that always promote voting by mail. So it's not like one option or the other. We always push people to vote by mail, and which is, because it dramatically increases voting rates. And also that second and final page, it's only a 2-page process. After they register, Voterizer also, in addition to asking if they want the handy reminders, has important notes, which are state specific, updated constantly, and will tell you like the registration deadline for the next election, the vote by mail registration deadline, stuff like that. And even once we're past primaries, we'll even tell you, who the Democratic candidate is to vote for in that, in swing districts in that state.
Second question, Jason, when you were in Orange County doing that fabulous first in-person voter registration effort. So most folks there, most of your volunteers used paper registration forms. And then, in the old days, we'd always update that or upload that to Field Team 6 with Voterizer. How does that work now?
So this will be, as Adam talked about, that upload process.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. That's one way you can do it. We are talking about asking for much less information also from our voter drive leaders, as in like just telling us how many forms you collected.
Okay, that's cool. I'm up for that. I mean, in the old days, what I do is I get this wad of forms and I'd run it through my scanner here and just make up a PDF with all of the forms, and then send this huge PDF to you guys. Mm-hmm. That worked then, but I'm fine just saying 46.
Right. The goal of that being just to make the whole process as frictionless as possible, and the thinking behind it being that we have, we did it that way that you're describing for so many thousands, tens of thousands of voters. So, most experiments have a much, much smaller sample size than that. So, to extrapolate from that, it's actually a really good sample size where we can be confident in who we're getting. That it's going to be almost exclusive, about 85% Democrats, about 14% independents, 10 to 14%. The very few lonely Republicans sneaking in there.
Well, we always used to hand the form back to the Republicans and tell them, now all you have to do is finish this thing and sign it, mail it in yourself, and you'll be sure,
We
you
did
know,
the
and then
same.
it's gone and we never see it again.
Absolutely right. That's perfect. That's a wonderful thing that you can do with paper forms. You know, yeah.
And then it was
I have a
have a
question.
nice day and we're on our way.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there any chance that you will do OCR for the uploaded forms so that that data can just be transferred over by itself?
Not likely. It's,
Okay.
I mean, the problem is people's handwriting is virtually impossible to OCR. It would, you know, if it was typed, it would be one thing, but we're talking about handwritten information. So, I mean, the success factor will be minimal. So it's unfortunately no. I mean, it's, you know, hopefully, you know, you can get volunteers to sit down and go through that process. Joanne? Go
Oh,
ahead.
you muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry. You know those really cool notes you have for specific states and all that? You know, when we had clipboards, we would carry cheat sheets, and like I would always carry the stuff like for people who had been previously incarcerated, the rules and stuff like that. Can that kind of thing be incorporated into the Voterizer, sort of like to take the place of those cheat sheets and notes and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that you can use, if it's not in the existing notes, the state notes, and you can use that test to get there and check it out and see what's in there, then you can use that add notes function to add your own notes, and those will always pop up for your organization. So again, as long as you use your subdomain, then when you go to that page 2 on the field or page 3 in the regular one, maybe ultimately to be page 2 in the regular one, it'll have your notes for California, as well as the notes that Field Team 6 manages. So you'll have the best of both worlds.
Oh, that's
Anything
great.
custom you want to put in there, you can do.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, and by the way, that's fully HTML as well. So if you want to bold something, if you know anything about HTML or have someone who does, then you can bold stuff and italic stuff and make stuff bigger or whatever. So you can customize that look for yourself as well. So that it should be pretty useful. Again, if you run into any problems, always let me know.
Can you attach like PDFs and stuff?
No.
Okay, so you'd have to just type it all out. Okay.
Yeah, there's a in that field. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to emphasize the only reason we're able to have an incredibly useful genius app like this is because of our entire coding team, which is all Adam Lesh. Just one guy.
I do want to shout out. Well, I do want to shout out
Amazing.
Barbara and Carolyn, who keep that back end updated. So there's a lot of work. One of the first things I told Jason as we were developing this thing, and we were starting to say, can we put custom stuff for every state? I'm like, so who's going to manage that? And so we have a team who does that as well. I don't do that, and I didn't want to. It's a big job, and people are. It's pretty amazing. Barbara's remarkable.
You can be on that team if you want, or if you have other people that want to help out, they can be on that team. Just
anybody who speaks Spanish, we're definitely could use. But it's a big job, and so yeah, the programming is one thing, but keeping that back end updated and clean and looking right, and not saying that the last election was in 2020, things like that. That's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. That data gets stale weekly, probably, if not monthly for sure, but weekly as well. So I mean, it's crazy. So it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, especially with all these anti-voter laws coming out all the time, staying on top of that, making sure that we're up to the minute. Like, yeah, it's tough work.
Adam,
yeah.
Sorry, Adam, where's this recording going to be?
It's in the cloud.
Okay, how do people who were here today?
You'll get whoever's Jason or you or whoever will get the email saying it's there, and then I'll email it out.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Great meeting. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. One other thing, just Joanne, you mentioned returning citizens, formerly incarcerated people. A new law passed in 2020 in California that it simplifies it and basically, yeah, Becky, you know, it looks like, as long as someone has served their term and they're not incarcerated, doesn't matter, even if they're on parole, probation, they can still be.
They can register.
Wait, even if they're on parole, I thought they had to finish their parole. Not
No
anymore?
longer. No
Not
longer.
anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, thank
Not
you.
anymore.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was
Yeah.
great.
I talked to a guy in the Home Depot parking lot who was like, nah, sorry, I'm a felon. Can't register. I was like, no, actually you can. And I told him, and he started to, you know, get a little, bristle a little, like he was like, I was in there 16 years. I just got out. And, you know, I thought maybe it'd be better to just kind of leave him be because I didn't want him going back.
Yeah, I had the same thing, and the guy started to cry.
Oh, that's
Once
beautiful.
I told him, and as we sat down and we started to do it, he started to cry. You know,
That's
he got tears
beautiful.
in his eyes because he never thought he'd ever be able to do it again.
Hey, Becky, could you write up that story and send us that story about that guy?
Okay.
Yeah.
We had at headquarters in 08, we had a similar story. A guy came in and brought his wife in. She had just turned 21 and wanted her to register to vote. And he said the same thing. And this was 08. And he said, well, I can't because no, yes, you can. He was off parole. And I'm glad to hear that the thing has changed. Election day, he came in, gave me a great big hug, tears rolling down his cheeks, and said, I just voted for the first time in my life. And you know, Becky knows, Janet knows, this is when you say, no, I like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid, but I like what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Good stuff. Okay.
All right, so any more questions, you can reach out to me or info@voterizer.org, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or take your feedback. And again, if you start using this thing in the field, since we have so little experience with that right now, please send us what you like, send us what you don't like, and you know, we'll work on making changes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good one.
Yay.
Thank you all. Thank you, Adam. You're the best.
Bye.